Hello everyone and welcome back to Silk Lace's YouTube channel. It's June, which is Pride Month, which means it's time to celebrate, educate, and listen to the LGBTQ+ community around you. With that being said, since we are a wig and topper company for women usually with hair loss who wear wigs every day, I thought it would be interesting to sit down with some drag queens who also wear wigs every day, but definitely in a different way. So we were lucky enough to sit down with two Dallas drag queens, Nada Montana and Dulce Struts, to discuss their performance art, their life story, and their journey with wigs. Enjoy!
My real name is Ronnie, but my drag name is Nada Montana, and my preferred pronouns in drag are she, her.
So my name is Andres Garcia, but whenever I'm in drag, I go by the name of Dulce Struts. I prefer she, her in drag, and I mean, usually like my drag friends will say she, her whenever I'm out of drag also.
So I was a baby gay, like even before I ever knew what drag was, and I dated this guy at the time, and he took me to the Rose Room here in Dallas, and I didn't even know that existed. I was like, I didn't know that men got it, were drag queens and performed. I didn't know that was a thing, and little did I know I'd been doing that my entire life. I would literally put a towel on my head and dance around in my room and perform to musicals or Hannah Montana, whatever. And I just remember thinking oh, I'll never because I'm not a girl, I can't get up and wear hair on stage and be whatever. And that is what when I saw that moment of going into that bar and seeing those queens on stage performing, I was like, I want to do that. I don't care what I have to do from here on out, I want to do it. I don't know what it's gonna take, but I want to do it.
She was one of the first queens that I ever saw at a show whenever I first went to a drag show, and I was always super, or immediately when I saw her I was like, okay, this is kind of what I want to do,
So, long time ago when I first started drag, I had some friends that I survived a tornado with. So, when we were coming up for a name with me, we would always jokingly call ourselves the tornado survivors. So we were like, what if we did something like a play on words with that? And so then I was also, as a kid, and as a teenager, really into Hannah Montana.
I wondered.
And so Montana just came naturally because it just flows. Nada Montana.
So I just kind of chose the name Dulce because I wanted something that was kind of playful but also in Spanish. And Struts is actually the last name of my drag mother.
My drag mother is Kylie O'Hara, and she and I started around the same time, and she's just really good at the business aspect of drag and really good at networking with people. I don't know how she does it. It's really witchcraft to me. She really has helped me build myself up and get to where I am now.
Yeah, so she we're both very campy, colorful queens, and because she did a lot of spoken word dialogue in her performances and very theatrical, and so I really do think that I've followed in those footsteps and created something that's unique to myself. I'm
always really adamant about I love music to be blasting while I get ready, and then I do my makeup first. And then I put my body on, because that is part of it. You have to put so many pairs of tights and pads on. And then I get dressed and put a wig on. And then if I'm going to a show where I'm performing, I'll bring extra wigs, extra clothes to change. And yeah, that all takes about 2 hours to get ready.
So my mood is usually very chaotic, honestly. Go to the store, make sure I have all my supplies. I'll choose my looks. Usually I'm a very visual queen, so I usually like to pick my looks and then match my performance to what I'm doing. Usually the part about drag I enjoy the most is putting together the hair and the costumes and the rhinestones and everything. So I've been doing drag for about 5 years now, so I've kind of gotten, at least the makeup, I've gotten it down to where I kind of can visualize what my drag face looks like when I see my boy face, so it's kind of I'm just
Second nature.
Yeah, it's muscle memory, honestly.
Honestly, whenever I put lashes on, at the end of my makeup, that's when I'm all right. Obviously the rest is for sure, it just keeps getting better. But that's the moment where I'm okay, here we are.
Honestly, it's the lashes. So like I wear these really big, like enormous lashes all the time, and I always feel like as soon as I put them on, I'm like, okay, now I feel like myself.
The first time I ever put on a wig, I was probably really young, because you know, everybody has like play wigs at some point. But I guess the first time I ever put on a wig as like Nada was whenever it was 2015 Halloween. That was the first time I ever went out in drag.
In high school, I would take photos of myself with like different wigs and makeup, but not necessarily drag. It was just kind of like to make myself look all weird, and I would take pictures of myself. It kind of evolved into doing female characters because it was very kind of like a club kid kind of abstract kind of more look rather than something that kind of fell into a certain gender. But I started wearing wigs and kind of doing more female characters, and it kind of evolved into doing drag.
Yeah, no, I definitely felt like, whoa, like the wig changes everything, really. All my friends were like, oh my gosh, like wig changes everything. That's really the moment, you know, you do lashes and then that's when you're like, okay, wow. Then wig is when you're like, all right, here we are.
Remember like because I had like little like costume wigs that weren't like that great, but I remember my first like nice wig that I got was like this neon pink like lace front, and I remember it was like a very different experience from putting on like whatever hard front I had. But I think like that moment I put it on, I was just like, okay, this is like I want to kind of take this to the next level, you know.
The first time I ever performed was in like spring of 2016. At UNT they had a drag show where you could sign up, and if you made it, you got to perform, and that was the first time I ever performed. It was like a sold out show. They were like having to turn people away from like the stadium. Yeah, and it was pretty intimidating, but I was ready.
I went out in drag for the first time, and that was kind of like my first night out, but like I didn't perform for like months after that, just because like I wanted to like wait for the right time and the right song. But honestly, the right time and the right song never comes, so I ended up just doing it and getting it out of the way, and it was one of the best decisions I made.
My favorite part about performing is just feeling the energy from the crowd. Like that is like everything to me. I love like making people happy, and whenever they're happy, it makes me happy. So it's like a mutual like thing that we're both getting something out of.
Before I go on stage, I'm always very nervous, but as soon as the music starts, that's when I like turn on. I really like to put a heavy emphasis on audience connection, you know, because like I feel like that's really kind of what sets aside people who are newer and more experienced.
So I went through an era where I would like lose my wig a lot. One time I walked out on stage and the girl that performed before me had dropped like a headband or something. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be cute and funny and pick this up and put it on my head. So I put it on my head and the crowd was like, yeah, they thought that was so funny. Like they thought it was genius that I picked it up and put it on my head. And then I was like, well, I don't want to wear it the whole time. So I went to take it off and my wig went with it. It was embarrassing, but then I just made it happen and I like ran backstage real quick, put the wig back on and then continued on. Sometimes like audiences love when you lose your wig. I don't know why, but I guess it's because it's like, they see like a real side of you. I don't know.
Actually, my first time performing, my wig came off.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was literally a hot mess. And I made the best out of the situation, and like I remember when the wig fell off, I had like put it in my mouth and was shaking it around, or just I was just trying to like make up for the mistake. But I think at that moment when that happened, I thought, I'm like, okay, this is as bad as it's gonna get. So I could only go up from here, you know?
I did a pageant 2 years ago now, and all that entire night is like a cherished moment for me because it really like helps me become more confident in drag and become more sure of myself and more just more confident about what I do in drag and how good I actually am. Absolutely. It's a completely different like 180. Like I'm typically pretty confident like in my everyday life as a boy, But drag is like something different just because you're such an extravagant character that people are just naturally drawn to you. Like I could do anything, and I'm not afraid because I'm like, well, I look like this.
Yeah, in a certain sense. I mean, I feel like, or actually, yeah, honestly, I really do. Because, like, as a boy, I wouldn't say that I'm, like, a nervous person or, like a not, like, I wouldn't say I'm not confident as a boy, but, like, I feel like I'm not as likely to reach out to strangers or, like, talk to people, like, I don't know, I'm just a little bit more hesitant. But whenever I'm in drag, it's almost like they don't know who I am. Like I could go up to someone and say some nonsense and they're not gonna not nonsense, but I could go up and meet people and they'll just accept me for what they see in front of them.
So I always wear bows. That's one thing I'm always known for. I didn't wear any today. I did have one on, but then I was like, I don't know, it just didn't work with this look. I wear bows and lots of I love big frilly tulle things. So, and pink, any pink. I own the most pink of anything. So those are 3 things that I'm usually always wearing at least one.
Just very over the top and colorful. I think that my side of the dressing room is always the craziest looking one because it has all the neon colors and the feathers and everything.
Blonde most of the time. I just think it compliments me most. I once in a while will wear brunette, never anything darker.
I think I usually tend to stick with neons lately just because I think it goes with the costumes that I have now, but I've worn black and red, and I do like wearing dark hair sometimes though, because I'll look like Latina. I feel like I never really look like a Latina queen whenever I'm in drag, but whenever I have dark hair, I'm okay, I'm actually kind of serving something. It's nice to serve something a little different every once in a while, but
oh my god, it means the world. One thing about it is that it is very competitive, and I think that's good. So competitive in that there's a lot of pageants. Pageants are the biggest thing in the South, really, but Dallas especially. The girls that get recognized the most and have the biggest respect are girls that have titles. Historically, that's slowly changing, but even still competitive in that if you do the same thing for too long, people are gonna get bored. So they're always, show directors, bars are always looking for fresh, new, polished talent for drag queens. That makes you work harder. It makes you want to work towards your art and better it always. You never want to, stop trying to be better. There's never, I'll look at this tomorrow after I take pictures and be oh, well, I could have done this better, And it's not a bad thing. It's not oh, I looked horrible. It's just, I know next time I can make it better.
Whenever I started coming to Dallas, I found my tribe. I just think that my kind of style of drag was embraced here in a way that I hadn't experienced before. And so I think it gave me more opportunities to kind of grow and be able to progress in my persona and my looks and my performances. The demographic of every drag community is a little different. Places like New York and LA that are kind of more artsy and vibrant, you're gonna see a lot more of those kind of artsy, campy kind of queens. And then in the South is very pageant and kind of more sticking to its roots, Yeah. But I will say that Dallas is a very very unique mesh of both the new school and the old school. So, that was one of the reasons why I fell in love with Dallas, is because they're so eclectic in all of their styles.
Definitely go into it because you want to do it. Don't go into it for any other reason other than you love the art form. That's the biggest thing. And then also be ready to have a thick skin because it's very competitive. It's a competitive scene. Sometimes the other queens are mean. Sometimes, you have to deal with that and you have to be able to stand your own ground. Unfortunately, as much as we wish it was all rainbows and hugs and stuff, it's in the end always a competition pretty much in any market you go to or any job, profession, whatever. So thick skin and always do it because it's what you love.
I mean, just kind of to not take yourself too seriously, and also just make sure that those little details are what counts at the show. You know, that's what makes you look polished and professional. And also, like, just to, like, it can be a very kind of hard thing to get into, drag, so it's nice to have a companion to kind of show you the way and show you, like, I guess, all the opportunities that are out there.
So all social media at Nayda Montana, Nayda Montana, like the state, or Hannah. And then I also am a regular at Booty Street Food. It's a restaurant in Deep Ellum. They always have shows, and I also host the RuPaul's Drag Race viewing parties there. I'm their resident host for that. And then I am a regular at Casinova's Freak Show on Mondays at JR's. Yeah, and then anywhere else the money takes me.
Instagram is Dulce Struts, just my first and last name. Luckily it wasn't taken. But yeah, just it's DULCESTRUTTS, so Struts with 2 T's at the end. I usually post about my shows, like if I have any on my story, but I'm pretty booked to the next couple weekends. If anyone that is watching wants to come, just check out my story.